Let us now take a look at the EC2 console or the EC2 dashboard on the AWS portal. To kick off things, let's go ahead and first create a EC2 instance. To do that, I will go ahead and click on Launch Instance. You will recall from the previous VPC or the network lessons is that we did navigate to this point, but were quick to finish through as well because at that point it was not relevant. But now we'll go into individual specifics and details and understand the creation of EC2 better. So when you initiate the provisioning of an EC2 instance, first thing you land up here is the AMI section. AMI is nothing but kind of an operating system that you select in this list. AMI is an image, so that includes the operating system, application server, and applications as well. What does that mean? So let's take a look at one of these AMIs, which is Amazon Linux 2 AMI, and it has an SSD volume. What does this include? It includes a customized version of Linux, which is Amazon Linux. Plus, it also has the following binaries installed. So you do not have to install these packages yourself. And if you look at the next AMI, which is the Amazon Linux AMI 2018 version, it has, of course, the Amazon Linux operating system plus the following packages installed in it, right? It also has Docker, PHP, MySQL, and Postgres database and several other packages inside it. So this Amazon image is a package. It's a zipped up version of your operating system and the application so that you do not have to invest your time installing that operating system and install those applications that you need for your business needs. Similarly, you will find the list of different Linux flavors in this list plus Windows as well. Okay, so one thing to notice is that every AMI has a unique identifier. It is AMI hyphen and then followed by a random 16 character GUID. Okay, it's a unique identifier. Right now I'm creating an instance in North Virginia region, okay? So if you have Amazon Linux AMI in North Virginia, its unique identifier will be different from the one in, let's say, Singapore, okay? So both of them will have different identifiers. The second point that I want to stress here is that not every operating system is free. Anything that is free is tagged as free tier eligible. And as you scroll down, there are paid versions as well. So if you're working in a free tier version, you just created an account and you're playing around things, then I suggest that you select the free tier eligible versions so that you do not get charged for playing around in the playground. Okay. With that being said, on the left hand side, you can also filter them and check this checkbox and say, hey, show me just the free tier one. So there is no way you can accidentally click on something that's chargeable. Okay. Now, apart from this list, there are lots of other AMIs in the marketplace. Now, what is a marketplace? Marketplace is like a library, and this is where there are thousands of images from different vendors. Now, if you take a look at this example, this image has CentOS operating system plus the LAMP stack installed. What is LAMP? The LAMP stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So this image or this AMI has the entire LAMP stack so that you do not have to install it yourself. And as you scroll down, you will see lots of products that are categorized based on, as you see here, DevOps, infrastructure software, machine learning, etc. So if you're looking for, let's say, a CRM application for your company, a customer relationship management for your company, you do not have to install that application explicitly. All you got to do is identify your CRM product, go and identify that in this list, select an appropriate one which suits your business needs, and then go with that. Are you charged for using AMIs in the marketplace? Well, some of them are free, some of them are pay as you go, other ones go for licensing basis. That is something you got to look at individual case by case basis. Of course, there's a checkbox here where you can say just show me free trial ones, but there are others as well that may charge you on hourly basis or annual basis, okay? Just an example, I'm going to pick up this AMI, which is movable type 6 Apache or something. And once you click on select, it's going to tell you what you will be charged for. So you got to pay for the software and then the EC2 as well, right? So you got to pay for the compute part, which is CPU and memory, and you pay like a fraction of a dollar here. And then you also pay for the software. This software, which is movable software, which appears to be a social publishing platform, which has got a lot of functions. And if you really need that application, you got to pay for that application plus the compute part of it, right? The software component goes to the company, and then the bills for the EC2 will then go to Amazon Web Services. It all depends on the instance type as well. So the larger the instance type you select, more money you pay to Amazon Web Services. All right. So that was about the marketplace. I'm going to click cancel and then go back to the initial screen where I have Amazon inbuilt images, right? So there are lots of these. Now, at this point, you may ask a question. Can I make my own image, right? What if I do not want Python? What if I do not want Ruby and I am only working on Perl, right? And I'm not working on MySQL and my application needs just Postgres, right? So you want to customize that AMI so that for further deployments in your infrastructure, you want to use that image as a standardized image for all servers. Can I do that? Absolutely. So Amazon has made things simple for us, and you will be able to see such custom images under the My AMI section, right? But how do we make those images? And I'm going to show that to you later on once our virtual machine is created. I'll make it a point to make sure that you know that as well, okay? But for now, I will go ahead and select a Windows-based machine. So this is a Microsoft Windows server. I'm going to get a 2019 server. It is free tier eligible, okay? So I'm happy with that, and I'll click on select. All right, looks like it's going to create a 64-bit machine for me. Okay, so what do I have now? This is the place where you select the instance type, okay? Instance type is nothing but the CPU and memory that you choose for your EC2 instance. The larger machine you choose, more money you pay. So as you scroll down, you got instances of different permutation combinations. So this is 4 CPUs and 16 gigs of memory. This is again 8 CPUs and 32 gigs of memory. And then its network adapter has 10 gigs. And this just means that it can handle massive sets of network traffic, right? That's what it means. So as you scroll down, you can identify different permutations and combinations, okay? So for now, I'll scroll up and show you one more point here that you can go ahead and filter them based on instance type. Is your application demanding a lot of graphics? Then you select a GPU instance. Is your application demanding a lot of memory? Are you creating an application for machine learning purposes? Or do you want an application that needs a lot of storage or it demands a lot of high IOPS? You can filter them based on that, and it's going to show you the instance types based on your requirement, right? For now, what I'm going to do is go ahead and select on all instances and then make sure that I select a free tier because this is enough for our labs, right? You don't want to get charged unnecessarily and pay your bills to Amazon. But what does T2 Micro give you? T2 Micro type gives you one CPU and one memory, right? That's what it means. So you got T2 small, T2 medium, T2 large, T2X large as well. I know that some of the organizations also call these as t-shirt sizes just for fun, right? So if somebody is saying, hey, can you create a EC2 instance of t-shirt size T2.2x large, you know what they mean, right? So you got to come here and select this. So for now, I will happily click on T2.micro, which gives me two virtual CPUs and 1 gig of memory, and click on next. Now this is a third page and it gives you lot of options, lot of details, and you need to make sure that you select them correctly. Starting with the first one, how many instances do you want to create? So if I type 6, it's going to create 6 instances with the same parameters and specifications, right? That's what it means. But I'm not hosting a production environment here to just go ahead and select one and then talk about the next one. Request spot instances. Now this term spot instances is not new to you. If you recall from the previous lesson, there are 3 ways you can create an instance. This is purely for billing purposes. So you can go for on-demand instance, a spot instance, and a reserved instance, right? So what do you recall from a spot instance lecture? Well, the spot instance means that you are bidding for the price. So let's say you do not want to pay 50 cents an hour, rather you want to stick with, let's say, 20 cents an hour, right? So you got to go ahead and type that number in here. So you're going to type 0.00025. So if Amazon has capacity in that region, which is North Virginia in this case, and the capacity must also be available in that availability zone, which is 1A, 1B, or 1C, and if they have that available, they will provision that virtual machine for you. Okay, so that was about Spot instances, and now we are looking at it practically as well as to how we bid for Spot instances. For now, I will go for an on-demand instance. So I will uncheck this box and let it go through this wizard, and then that creates an on-demand instance for me. Okay, now the next thing I gotta do is choose a network in which I want to provision my EC2 instance. In this case, my VPC would be the one that we created in the previous lesson. So I will select that, and then I can choose the only subnet I have in that VPC. The next option is whether you would like to have a public IP to that EC2 instance. I will enable it because I want to have public IP, but in other cases, you can go ahead and set it to disable as well. That's fine. So I will enable it. Placement groups are primarily for creating a physical machine instead of creating a virtual machine. So I'll leave the whole section now because I really do not want to create a physical machine. The next section, domain join directory, is about joining this EC2 instance to your Active Directory. So if you have an Active Directory environment or directory services environment in AWS, you can choose to join this EC2 instance to that domain while provisioning this virtual machine. Okay, that's what domain join directory is. And when you're doing that, you need to have some kind of a permission to join your EC2 instance to the domain. And that is done by the IAM role. The shutdown behavior. The shutdown behavior is when you right click on that EC2 instance once it is provisioned, and then you want to delete it, or you will just say shut down. At that point in the background, should it just go ahead and stop that EC2 instance or terminate it? Terminating is when you will lose the virtual machine forever. You will not have any data at all. So I always recommend that you choose stop because shutdown means stopping the machine and not terminating, right? So I will leave it as stop, and then the various options related to hibernation, which is enable hibernation as an additional stop behavior. So when you right click and stop that virtual machine or EC2 instance, you would get an option. And I will say something like, hey, do you want to hibernate this EC2 instance instead of shutting it down? Okay. The next option is enable termination protection. Enable termination protection will protect us from accidentally deleting and accidentally terminating that EC2 instance. Usually, we check this box in production environments so that anybody who has higher level of privileges cannot accidentally delete our EC2 instance, right? Monitoring. Now, monitoring is enabled by default anyway, so you get monitoring, but then you can enable additional monitoring or detailed monitoring by checking that box. What does that mean? Now, when you look at monitoring, let's say on the graphs, you are getting CPU versus time, or memory versus time, or let's say disk utilization versus time. The time delta would be about 5 minutes. So if you do not check this box, the time delta on the graph will be 5 minutes. So it's going to plot those dots on the graph every 5 minutes if you uncheck this box or leave it unchecked. But if you check it, then the time delta will be 30 seconds. So you will get more detailed monitoring. That's what it means. Then of course, if you check it, additional charges will be applicable. The next option, tenancy, is if you would like to create a virtual machine. The first option is running on a shared hardware instance. So this will be multi-tenant, or it will be a virtual machine. Or if you would like to create a physical machine, which is dedicated physical box just for you. And the last one is if you already have a physical machine, you will be allowed to create a virtual machine on your physical machine. So nobody else will be using that physical box. It's gonna just you who will be provisioning virtual machines on that virtual box. So it will not be multi-tenant. I will choose the first option where I want to make my virtual machine multi-tenant, so other customers or other consumers of AWS will be able to share those resources. The next option, elastic graphics, is more about controlling the graphics acceleration of that EC2 instance, right? So if you got your application that demands a lot of graphics, then you will check that box. T2, T3, unlimited enable is about bursting the loads. What does that mean? So right now I've selected T2 micro, and let's say the application demands more CPU and more memory, then it can burst the load and then go beyond the baseline of a T2 micro EC2 instance, right? So it just gives you that on-demand performance. The next option is about network interfaces. By default, I need one network card at least, but you can add multiple network cards. You can automatically assign IP addresses, add IP addresses manually here as well. Next, do you want to create that in a different subnet? Well, you have the options to select that in the drop-down menu. If you would like to add an additional network card, all you got to do is click on Add Device, and it gives you the options which you can select from. But at this time, I'll just leave it as ETH0, which stands for Ethernet Card 0, and look at the advanced options. Now, one of the important section here is the user data. Now, in the user data section, you will copy and paste some kind of a script, right? So when the virtual machine is being provisioned, at that time, this script gets executed and does certain operations. It could be just any script. It could be a PowerShell script or a Python script. Let's say you want to copy a lot of files from the GitHub or somewhere. Then you will write a script so that it can copy those files or install some application during the VM provisioning. That's what user data means. You can just copy and paste the script or even import it as a text file. Okay. Now that being said, I will go ahead and click on Next to understand storage. Now under the storage section, what's more important to understand is the volume type. In the previous lesson, I did mention that you will be charged based on the IOPS of the hard disk. This is where your operating system is running. You can add multiple volumes to the same EC2 instance, and this is called as EBS, Elastic Block Storage. So it's going to be an EBS volume. By default, you got one drive, but you can click on this add new volume option to add as many volumes as you like for that EC2 instance. But there are other options which controls the performance of that drive. By default, it says it's going to attach a general purpose SSD solid state drive, and the maximum IOPS you're going to get is up to 3000 IOPS. Okay, but what if you want more than this? If your application demands more than 3000 IOPS, then you're going to select provisioned IOPS, and this is where you can go up to 16,000 IOPS by using provisioned IOPS SSD. So provisioned IOPS SSD gives you much better performance as compared to general purpose, right? Whereas the other one, which is magnetic, is not an SSD, it's your regular HDD drive, okay? So by selecting general purpose and provisioned, you get SSD disks, but the magnetic ones gives you just the standard HDD drive, okay? So magnetic can be used for sandbox environments, testing environments where you do not think performance is a key criteria, but with the other two, performance is guaranteed. How much? Well, it all depends on general purpose or provisioned IOPS. Of course, provisioned IOPS will give you more IOPS as compared to general purpose. That being said, for this lab, I'll select general purpose, click on next, and then type in some tags here. What are tags? Tags are responsible to create a CMDB for you, a configuration management database. So you can tag this EC2 instance as, let's say, name. I'm going to type web server, okay? And then I'll say who the owner is. The owner of this server is, let's say, Rob, okay? And now I'm going to say who the application owner is. So the application owner will be, let's say, the same guy. I'm going to type in his email address this time. It's a rob@company.com, all right? And you can add multiple tags like that. Just say backup needed. Yes or no? Just say yes. At times you may want to charge back your business unit. So it's important to have cost center as well. So you'll put your cost center ID so that over a period of time, when virtual machines or EC2 instances are created with the same cost center value, you can pull up a report and charge that business unit back, right? That's what tags are. This is nothing but a key value pair. All right, so I'll select that And then moving on to the next important section, which is security groups. This is very important. Security group is where you will configure the rules to allow inbound connections. Now, it was intelligent to identify that it is a Windows-based machine, so it knows that it needs port number 3389 for that inbound connection. So what it has done is that it has automatically added port number 3389 as a rule. But let's say you want to make it a web server. What you're going to do is click on add rule, and then because it's a web server, you need port number 80 inbound. But what you can also do is select this drop down menu and then select HTTP here, okay? HTTP is right here, and then automatically populates a lot of these fields, which is port number 80. TCP inbound is allowed from the following CIDR range, which is internet. 0.0.0.0/0 is nothing but internet. And this is just a IPv6 version of it. Okay. Now, there are other options that you can select in the source. You can type your custom IP by selecting my IP, and that would ensure that the traffic is allowed only from my IP address and not from anywhere else. Okay, and then you can type in a brief description here. So for now, I'll go ahead and select custom, and then let's just type in 0000/0, and that allows the traffic specific to port number 80 and 3389 from the internet. Rest of the ports are blocked. Okay. Um, all right, that being said, again, let's click on Review and Launch, which gives you the summary of the various options that you've selected. On the right hand side, you've got the Edit option to edit a specific item in the wizard. If you're happy with that, click on Launch, and now is the place where you can select the key pair. Key pair is a combination of a public key and a private key. Public key is stored with Amazon, and you need to keep your private key safely in some kind of a repository. All right. So a combination of public key and a private key gives you the password and lets you authenticate into your EC2 instance. That's what it means. So you can either choose to use an existing key pair. I already have a key pair in my region, but let's say I've lost this key pair. What I can do is go ahead and create a new key pair and type my own name. I call it as new key pair or something, and I need to make sure that I download this key pair. Okay, now that key pair we just got downloaded needs to be kept somewhere safely in some kind of a vault, because if I lose it, there is no way I can log into this machine again. Right, there are other methods, there are workarounds which we're going to talk about later, but for now, just just remember that for you to log in to an EC2 instance, you need a key pair, so that you need a private key which also has an extension of PEM. All right. So that being said, let's click on launch instances. It takes about 4 to 7 minutes to create an instance completely once that is ready. So I'm going to pause this video now. And then connect again once the virtual machine is up and running. All right, then see you in the next lesson.